Welcome. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight for the CHIPS Candidates Night. And we're going to start tonight with Jay Nimini, Director of Student and Family Outreach, to open up with a prayer.
Thank you, Ms. Juanita. Let us pray. Father God, we honor you today. Truly, this is the day that you have made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. God, we thank you for all the candidates that have come out. God, we thank you and we pray for integrity. Your word says that integrity, people with integrity, you would always guide them, but the people who are perverse in their transgression, they will be destroyed. But I believe that everyone here has integrity, and they have integrity in their heart, and they will allow them to guide them in every decision that they make so that we can continue to do your work and we can continue to do your will for our families and for the community. In your name we pray, amen.
And if we please rise to Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Jay. As we start tonight, can we please have everyone to silence your cell phone? This is a live candidates night, so we do have a Joe Bach here with his camera here tonight, so we are live. And also be respectful to all of our candidates here tonight. And we want to here for one reason is to gather information. Again, we are live tonight. And our moderators for tonight, of course, is Carmen Levis and Alicia Pardon. They are our co-director of our conference, the Hispanic Leadership Conference. And tonight we have our young man, our Lorain High Senior LCC student, Carlos Diaz. He is a senior, and he'll be attending Kent State in the nursing program come fall. So let's welcome them. The candidates will each have 1 minute for an opening statement. Next, they will be asked multiple questions by the panelists and give 1 minute answers. They will conclude with a 1 minute final statement. The candidates have received the questions arriving here tonight. As you see, they're all seated here to my left and my side here. Right now, I'm going to welcome Dr. Kathleen Kern, who's going to start here, and she is going to be talking on the renewal of the Mental Health Board.
Good evening. I want to start by thanking the CHIP organization for putting together this forum tonight. CHIP has always been a fantastic partner to mental health. Actually was one of the first organizations to endorse Issue 4. But I'm just so pleased also to have the opportunity to speak to a wider audience in a larger forum about the importance of mental health in our community and about Issue 4. So I understand that we don't have a lot of time. I'm going to give you a brief overview about the mental health services that are available, and also why Issue 4, a renewal levy, not a new tax, is absolutely critical to the continued provision of these services. So for those of you who have not yet had an opportunity to participate in mental health services, many of us will. 1 in 5 experience mental health issues in a lifetime. So in all likelihood, if you haven't yet, you probably know someone who's been impacted by mental health. At our board, our mission is to make sure that there's a safety net available so that every person in Lorain County can have access to mental health services regardless of their ability to pay. We fund 8 clinical agencies that see clients. If they have no insurance, if they have terrible insurance, it doesn't matter. The safety net is there so that anybody in Lorain County can have access to mental health care regardless of their ability to pay. And I'm really proud of the services that our network provides. Excuse me, do I have to stop? Okay. Really proud of the services that our network provides. Last year, over 12,000 people received mental health services as a result of being part of our mental health network. An additional 14,000 called a crisis hotline that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we're able to talk to a licensed clinician about their mental health crisis. And that licensed clinician either walked them through their own path to making sure that they were okay, or organized a mobile outreach to make sure that that person was safe. The mental health services not only make sure that people can receive services regardless of the ability to pay, but they also make sure that the people who are most in crisis can get connected to services exactly when they need them. There's two main reasons that we are able to do this. The first is we have an incredible board of directors. And I need to say, I'm so pleased to be able to work for incredibly competent, incredibly educated, incredibly passionate people who volunteer their time to make sure that the workings of the board are fiscally responsible and are meeting the community needs. People like Tim Carrion, who's a member of CHIP, and Martin Levis, who was a member of our board until recently, are emblematic of the kind of passion and devotion that volunteers have to make sure that these services are available for our community. So in closing, I just want to thank those board members and thank the community, because the truth of the matter is 85% of our funding comes from local community support. And without community support, if we don't pass our levy, we really aren't going to be able to sustain a system that meets the mental health needs of our community. So please consider voting for issue 4, the mental health levy, a renewal levy. It won't raise taxes, but it will help families in crisis. Thank you.
Next up is Lorain County Issue 5, a renewal for development disabilities. Dr. Amber Fisher.
Good evening. As she said, I'm Amber Fisher. I'm the superintendent of the Lorain County Board of Developmental Disabilities, better known as Murray Ridge Center. And I'd like to thank you for offering me the opportunity to talk a little bit about Issue 5, a 5-year, 1.69 mils renewal levy that will not increase taxes, but will make an important difference to Lorain County children and adults with developmental disabilities. Developmental disability generally means that one is going to need support throughout one's life. And Murray Ridge has a 50-year history of providing lifelong services that are essential to Lorain County residents with developmental disabilities and their families. We start with early intervention services that assist parents to stimulate the development of infants and toddlers with delays and medical conditions. These services are highly valued and effective, and last year were provided by Murray Ridge to more than 550 children ages 0 to 3. At Murray Ridge School, we educate students with significant intellectual disabilities, and often with medical or behavioral issues, who are referred to us by Lorain County school districts. In our preschool, we educate children with disabilities alongside typically developing peers. Through Murray Ridge Adult Services and other adult programs that are funded and overseen through Murray Ridge Center, nearly 1,000 adults with developmental disabilities receive day and vocational services every year. Murray Ridge operates 3 adult opportunity and vocational centers in Lorain, Elyria, and Oberlin, and assists hundreds of individuals with developmental disabilities to work in the community. Connection to community is, in fact, an area of emphasis for our agency. And last year, to celebrate our 50th anniversary, nearly 200 of the individuals that we serve volunteered to meet needs within Lorain County as a way to give back to the community that has supported them for a half-century. And these acts of giving back are now a cornerstone of our adult program. Murray Ridge also provides funding, planning, and oversight of residential services for more than 620 eligible individuals in Lorain County. and through its family support program, assists hundreds of families who have a child or adult with developmental disabilities in the family home. Through our Service and Support Administration Department, Murray Ridge connects individuals with resources, develops individual plans to assist those we serve to live safe and fulfilling lives. We authorize funding, and our SSA department monitors outcomes and the quality of services. More than 1,850 individuals were served through our Service and Support Administration Department last year. Passage of Issue 5 will renew Murray Ridge Center's levy that expires at the end of this year. This levy brings in approximately 30% of the funding for the Lorain County Board of Developmental Disabilities, and without its renewal, more than a third of the services of Murray Ridge Center will be impacted because local levy dollars are used to pull down federal Medicaid funds. Again, Issue 5 will not increase taxes, but it's critically important to people with developmental disabilities in our community and their families. On May 8th, please join me in supporting these individuals by voting for Issue 5. Thank you so very much.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Yeah, it's for a nicer day, huh?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Gonna get some big ones. Anybody want to wear a life jacket?
I'm good.
No life jacket? That's a deal breaker.
Daddy, you promised.
Daniel Stevens.
Yeah, give me one of those life jackets.
This message brought to you by the National Safe Boating Council and the women who nag you. Love you.
For the thousands of wounded warriors returning from battle, Wounded Warrior Project has developed the Warriors to Work program, a unique program that helps wounded warriors translate their military experience to the civilian workplace. The Warriors to Work program also works with employers to find the right job for the right warrior. Contact Wounded Warrior Project at findwwp.org. Welcome home the brave.
Okay, we're going to start now with Congress 9th District. If the candidates can please come forward.
Okay, before we get started, a few things. Again, the same questions will be posed to all incumbents and candidates within a contested race. Questions will be engaging in nature and are meant to assist our constituency and the viewing public to get to know individuals running for public office, what they stand for, and why they are running. In order to protect our incumbent and candidates, no questions from the audience will be allowed. All candidates in contested races will be given 1 minute to introduce themselves in an opening statement, followed by a series of questions from us up here, the moderators, and the same question will be given to each candidate with 1 minute answers. Each candidate will then be given 1 minute for their concluding statement. Please be advised that we do not appreciate disparaging remarks from any candidate against an opponent. If a contested office candidate makes a disparaging remark about a fellow candidate, the disparaged candidate will be given time to respond. The candidate making the disparaging remark will not be allowed to follow up. And we reserve the right to follow up on any response that warrants further clarification. Lastly, we would like to thank Mike Ferrer for his prior commitment to Candidates Night, but tonight, sit back and relax as we take over. A last reminder is to look at the camera because you'll be speaking to the public. So first, we're going to start with opening remarks, and we will start with Joshua Garcia.
Hello, my name is Joshua Garcia. It's an honor to be here tonight. My family moved here to Lorain in the 1920s. My great-grandma came from Mexico, which gave birth to my grandmother, who's here today. And it's an honor to be here today as a Hispanic. As we move on through the years, more Hispanics will gain the courage to run for office, unlike our president who seems to put them down. I've decided to run for office because it's time for younger voices to begin to speak. As we've seen a movement in Florida, our politicians have become stagnant, and the same leader's been in office for a long time. And the things that face our community is our health care. We know it's hit us hard here in Lorain County, and it's time a new voice comes in, speaks up about the future job opportunities, making sure college is affordable, and making sure that we're investing in our trade schools so that kids can become the electricians and the plumbers that we need to fix our infrastructure in the future. And it's time to put term limits on Congress because people have served far too long. And thank you.
Mr. Franklin, 1 minute.
Hello, my name is W. Benjamin Franklin, and yes, that is my real name. Okay. I have a driver's license if anyone wants to see it. I was born in California, raised in Cleveland by West Virginia parents. I'm a product of the Cleveland public school system. I have lived in Cuyahoga County most of my life, about 25 years in the west side of Cleveland, Lincoln West High School graduate. I have about 16, 17 years in Berea, and 6 or 7 years in Parma, so I've seen the inner city, and I've seen the suburbs. And I have education at 4 different schools and colleges. That's Cuyahoga Community College, Cleveland State University, Baldwin-Wallace University, and Malone University in Canton. I like to think that I have a broad background and have something different to offer in how I've been raised, in the variety of life that I've seen in my travels and in where I have lived. And I've been down. I mean, so I understand a lot about being down. I understand the need to have food assistance, but I also understand the need to get off. So, thank you.
All right, thank you for those opening remarks, and we'll get into the questions. Mr. W. Benjamin Franklin, the first question is to you. If elected to Congress, what attributes and skills would you bring to your elected position?
Well, I believe I've said a little bit already. I have a wide background in both college and where I've lived and the people I've come across. My college, I have majors in history and theater. I have a minor in education. And at Malone University, I have a partial master's in Christian theology. So I like to think I have a broad background. I had a 4.0 at all the schools in Cuyahoga County, and a 3.75 in studying for my master's. So I feel very comfortable about being able to sit down and look at a subject and study the subject and make a reasonable decision. I have been involved in politics a little. I've never been an office holder. I've been a ward leader in the city of Berea. I have started up the Berea Republican Club just to try and get some involvement so that we are able to hear different issues and hear from different speakers and different candidates so that we can get some of the firsthand knowledge of things.
Thank you. And Mr. Garcia, same question. If elected to Congress, what attributes and skills would you bring to your elected position?
My passion and confidence. Many people don't know this, but at 18 years old, I was highly passionate about our educational system, understanding at a very early age that it was unaffordable to go to college, that our schools began to cut trade programs, begin to cut business programs. When I graduated, so many of my students and myself had no idea what life math skills were, had no idea how a checking account worked, had no idea how to buy your first car, how to even apply for FAFSA, all the things that we need. And me being a younger person and being passionate like that, I went around and got 100 signatures to try to make a move on our educational system. And then when I was at Indiana University, my freshman year, I was senator in student government. I was vice president for Multicultural Student Union, and I was on the budgetary committee. So I would use those abilities and also debate club. So I have those abilities to be able to speak with people and use those passions I had at 18, and now I have the ability to use them today.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Now I'd like to ask you, do you feel that there is still hope for the 2 dominant parties in the United States to work together to resolve the problems facing our country?
I believe there's hope, and the hope is adding term limits. From when I speak to people, we're tired of seeing the same old faces. Mitch McConnell's and Nancy Pelosi's, they made our government stagnant. Look at our health care. It's terrible. They haven't done anything to fix it. It's been sidetracked by a bunch of commotion that's going on. College, unaffordable. No kid can afford to go to college. Our schools, kids are graduating, like I said, no life math skills, have no idea how to start life. And we've completely, for 30 years, taken away our vocational programs. And these candidates have sat back and watched things happen year after year. Our jobs have left. They're not preparing for the future. We're not giving opportunity for kids to know how much it costs for college, how bad that could be for them. And if we don't get new people in office with new views and new ideas, we're going to continue to be stagnant, and the government's going to continue to shut down like it has, as you've seen in the President Trump's presidency.
Thank you. Mr. Franklin, I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you feel there is still hope for the two dominant parties in the United States to work together to resolve the problems facing our country?
Well, I like to be optimistic. I'm a Christian, and so I think there's always hope, okay? So there's always, I think, a solution, but I think what's entrenched in Washington so heavily will be very difficult to extricate. In order to do that, and whether you're for or against Trump, this is something he's trying to do, and we see how difficult that is to try and accomplish. So you do need people who are willing to, A, speak the truth, not afraid to speak the truth or seek the truth. You also have to have people who will stand against the swamp or be willing to drain the swamp without feeling afraid, and I don't have this fear. I follow my American beliefs, and I think that you can set any two people together down together and resolve something, but you have to start with the truth, and I just don't think they're doing that.
Mr. Franklin, what is your position on one or more of these immigration issues? Wall or no wall? Deportations? Under what conditions? And who can come to the United States?
Well, I think anybody's free to come to the United States. As far as how that happens, I think that's the issue. I am in favor of a wall. I think it gets a lot of attention from the standpoint of immigration, but we're also talking about a security issue. I don't think there's anybody in this room who would raise their hands and say, before I go to bed at night, I open my door wide open so anybody can come in. Okay, but the same rationale, I think the government is just like the father wanting to protect his family and keeping his house secure, and that he has that ability and he has that right, as every country has their right to try and secure the border. There's a lot of crime on it and near the border. There are terrorist training camps in South America and others who follow those kind of teachings from those camps who are free to get across the border, and this is one way to help bring this to an end.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Mr. Garcia, the same question. What is your position on one or more of these immigration issues? Wall or no wall? Deportations, under what conditions, and who can come to the United States?
Well, for one thing, we don't need a wall. We need to protect our dreamers. President Trump's found out how to kind of put a dent in the Hispanic culture, which is wrong. On immigration, I spent a whole year in South Dakota working for our work travel program, and we have to save people from coming to this country. A lot of college kids come over here on work credits. They go back, they come back again to earn their credit, and they go back to the country. But what has happened is we don't allow them to come back here and work. We need those people. If you listen to a lot of people within our future, like Tim Cook or Elon Musk and people in our future technologies, we have to retain foreign college kids. They have to be able to come over here, because if we don't retain those, they're going to go work for their own countries, and we want them to work here. Silicon Valley is in trouble. India, China, and Japan will begin to take over our technological age, and we have to begin to fight. And I don't think any wall should be put up. Dreamers should be protected. The only person I would ever think about maybe sending back would be somebody who had broken a law that was going to be inherited to.
Thank you. And for your last question, starting with you, Mr. Garcia, should cultural competence have relevance to a sitting congresswoman or congressman? If the answer is yes, are there any steps you would take to ensure that your staff and other applicable personnel are culturally competent when dealing with the community?
I think we just seen that with Starbucks. I was vice president for Multicultural Student Union. One of the initiatives that being vice president at Indiana University Southeast, our handbook that was given out to the future college students had nothing but white people on the pamphlets. I spoke up, I said, we need to add Hispanics, our foreign students, and we began to rechange the pamphlets. We began to put new pictures within the university that showed more, diversity. it's so important for your staff, and I would like to commend Starbucks for closing down their store to teach these very issues, because I feel like people don't understand each other. And I can tell you from the millennial generation, we live in an age where we are more multicultural diverse than the older generations, and we believe that everyone has an opportunity in this country. And maybe when I'm 80 years old, like my grandma, we're living in a world where it doesn't matter what race you are, what color you are, what ethnicity, if you're gay, not gay, that you respect each other and make this world a better place.
Thank you. Mr. Franklin, same question. Should cultural competence have relevance to a sitting congresswoman or congressman? And if the answer is yes, are there any steps you would take to ensure that your staff and other applicable personnel are culturally competent when dealing with the community?
All right, I got to be honest. This is the first time I've ever heard this phrase. It seems to me like it's not a phrase that can be readily defined by one person. I think you can have, if you give it to two different people, they're going to give you two different definitions of what it's supposed to mean. Are each of them going to be wrong? Well, no, that's what's culturally competent to them. Okay, so you need to be able to see things from more than one viewpoint. If you set this up as something that's going to deny someone their basic rights that are constitutional, then it's absolutely wrong. We have a constitution to follow, we follow it, and we give the person the rights that they have. I think in my own case, I have a wide, I've been through the inner city, I've been in that situation, I've been through the suburbs. You know, my parents are from the back hills of West Virginia, so I've seen different levels of society, and I think I can offer complete respect for anybody.
Thank you. Now you will each have 1 minute for closing remarks. Mr. Franklin, we'll start with you.
Now, I'd just like to say, I'm a retail worker. I have a blue-collar resume, white-collar education. I do physical labor. I think if there's something that's been knocked against me, it's that I can't complete what's there. However, like I've said, I was an excellent student in college, and so my ability to sit down and read are very good. And when I was at Cleveland State, I would bike 2.5 miles to work, leave my bicycle, take the bus downtown to Cleveland, take my classes, take the bus back to work, ride my bike in the dark through unlit areas, and I did that in my 40s and maintained a 4.0. So I'm there to fight for you, and I'm there to stick it through, and I'm not going to be intimidated by anyone, and I feel I can hold my own against anyone.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia, your 1 minute closing remark.
All right, one of my big things I'm going to talking to people within my campaign is millennial housing. For instance, downtown Lorain is trying to bring business back to the downtown. So what we need to do is have our towns and cities invest in bringing housing behind the small businesses we want to put downtown. Now, from what I'm understanding, Elyria has already paired up with LCC. They built dorms in Elyria, and they bused the foreign student kids to the campus. If we can make it affordable for college kids to live away from their parents, charge $150 to $200, and the towns invest in them to live there, they're going to be downtown. They're going to go to your coffee shops. They're going to go to your small businesses, and it brings traffic flow. It's somewhat set up like how universities set up, where they put their dorms right on campus edge, where your restaurants and bars, so the kids have an opportunity to get out and do things. And also, one of my biggest things, have faith. People would like to call me a millennial. Have faith that the younger people coming up are going to fight for this country, and we've seen it in Florida, and I'm going to continue that. And today, I've been given that opportunity, and I want to thank Lorain County Chip Club for allowing me to come here to speak. It was an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll take a short break as we switch out into the next race.
In an instant, life can change. Hi, I'm veteran J.R. Martinez. If you've been hurt or disabled due to your service, the last thing you need to do is hurry up and wait for a VA claims decision. Make sure you file an electronic, fully developed claim, or e-claim, for disability compensation on e-benefits. It's the fastest and easiest way to get a claims decision. Learn more at ebenefits.va.gov. E-claims and e-benefits, online VA claims made simple.
Thank you for coming. Janet Garrett, we're going to give you a 1-minute opening remark.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Chip for organizing this event, and thank you so much for having me here today. I taught in Lorain County for 35 years. I was a Peace Corps volunteer. I was on the executive council of my teachers union for 20 years, serving in various offices, including president. I spent all that time preparing children to meet the future. And I am out here now running for them primarily because, you see, the future is looking dimmer and dimmer for those children. I am out here to be a change agent. I will fight for a safer future for our kids, for a cleaner, safer, healthier environment. I will fight for opportunity for them, for their opportunity to go to college and not come out with crushing debt, for them to get job training so that they can get jobs that pay a living wage. I want an America that works for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to go into our first question. If elected to Congress, what attributes or skills would you bring to your elected position?
Oh, thank you for that. As I said, I was a teacher. I worked in the public schools. In the public schools, you work with everyone. Your agenda is to help everyone. And that is the attitude that I bring to this office. We are in a place where we need to reach across the aisle. We need to reach each other. We need to reach the middle.
The next question, Ms. Garrett, is what do you feel are the 2 biggest obstacles facing this nation in the next 4 years?
Well, like I said, the deep divide is the biggest issue that we're facing right now. We need to find a way to reach across the aisle and take hands. We're all Americans. We're all children of God. We should be able to make this country better for all of us. The second issue that I think is really critical is jobs that pay a living wage. The middle class needs a raise. The poor need a raise. And those are the issues that I would really advocate for.
Thank you. For your third question, what is your position on one or more of these immigration issues? Wall or no wall? Deportation under what conditions? And who can come into the United States?
So I get to pick one? Oh, yes. I would say wall. Now, first of all, I want to say that wall was probably one of the stupidest things that came out of the last election. First of all, if you build a wall and people want to get over that wall, what are they going to do? They're going to make tunnels, they're going to build ladders, they're going to use airplanes, and they're going to use boats, and they're going to get in. You also need to ask yourself, how many countries in this planet have got walls on their borders? I really racked my brain to try to think of any. I think that it is a huge waste of money. I think that Donald Trump used that as a calling card. He said that Mexico was going to pay for it, and now that he's demanding that our taxpayers pay for it, and that is not acceptable to me.
Thank you. And now for your last question, do you feel there is still hope for the 2 dominant parties in the United States to work together to resolve the problem facing our country?
Well, I think there is hope, but yet again, I want to come back to this idea of the deep divide. We've got to realize that we're all Americans, and we've got to understand that probably Republicans and Democrats need each other for balance. There needs to be progress, and there needs to be some accountability for holding on to what's good and true in the past. So we need each other. But when we've got this deep divide, it's not serving us. So we've got to get rid of that.
Thank you. Now you'll have a 1-minute closing remark.
Okay. So I want to say that we have got reason for great hope in this country. We have been seeing a rise in grassroots movements all over the nation. We saw the indivisible movement rise, and there are chapters everywhere. We saw the rise of the women's movement. It started with the Women's March on Washington, and it has continued with the Me Too movement. We have seen the next chapter of the civil rights movement coming to life with the Black Lives Matter movement. And then with this tragedy that happened in Parkland, we saw students across the nation stand up and demand gun safety. In the early elections, we are seeing that there is evidence that there will be a sea change in November. But we need really good people to get out there and make sure it happens. So I am here tonight to ask for your vote. I'm asking for your help. I would encourage you to go to my website, janetgarrett.com. We need you. Thank you very much.
We thank you for coming. Now we will take a short break as we switch into a new race.
Sergeant Michelle Garcia served meritoriously in Iraq and has the medals to prove it. Soon after leaving the Navy, Lieutenant Chris Scott found a job, a home, and started a family of his own. Corpsman Richard Stokely took the skills he learned in Vietnam and put them to good use as a paramedic. But soon after leaving the military, each of these veterans fell on hard times and faced homelessness. Even after Michelle lost all her savings, even after Chris wasn't able to pay his mortgage, and even after Richard battled alcoholism for years, they each reached out for help when they needed it most. A simple phone call put them in touch with a trained professional from the Department of Veterans Affairs. That call got Michelle a place to stay until she could afford one of her own, put Chris in touch with employment assistance, and found Richard a substance abuse program. These veterans are success stories not only for how they were able to help others while serving their country, but for how they were able to let others help them. If you know of or are a veteran in need, make the call.
We'd like to welcome our candidates for the State Senator 13th District, and you would each have 1 minute for an opening remark. And we will start with Ms. Sharon Sweda.
Good evening, I'm Sharon Sweda, and I'm running for State Senate District 13. I'm a daughter of a local 425 union worker, and I've lived my entire life within this district. We've built a business. I've worked side by side with the community to build investment. I've worked at problem solving, job creation, budget balancing, and helping families throughout my life. My life's work was done sitting at kitchen tables one at a time, helping families at the best and the worst times of their lives, helping them when they were happy, when they were sad, and when they needed help. In the past few years, I've helped with folks in negotiating pro bono short sales and trying to assist as they've muddled through the economic downturn. I'm running for Senate because I know that the policies from Columbus no longer work for the citizens in our district. And it's my hope that I'm going to be able to get into Columbus and do things to work for the greater good of the citizens in our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Nathan Manning, you will also have a 1 minute opening remark.
Thank you. I'm Nathan Manning. I'm running for State Senate for the 13th District, which covers all of Lorain County and Huron County. A little bit about myself. I'm a lifelong resident of Lorain County, proud graduate of North Ridgeville High School. Went down to Denison University for undergrad, then Capitol University for law school. I came back up and somehow talked my sister Allison into joining forces and starting a small business of our own. And we're still going strong over 10 years later with the law firm of Manning & Manning, the biggest law firm in North Ridgeville with 2 of us. During that time, I actually was the city prosecutor for North Ridgeville. And then in 2014, decided to run for state representative and somehow won. 3.5 years later, I'm currently the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee. We're doing great work on that committee in terms of criminal justice reform and on the opiate epidemic. I also serve on the Education Committee, Civil Justice, and Transportation. And last but certainly not least, I currently reside in North Ridgeville with my wonderful wife, Jennifer, who's a teacher at Lakewood High School. Thank you, and I look forward to some great questions.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Mr. Ryan Sayer, same 1-minute remark, opening remark. Thank you.
My name is Ryan Sawyer, running for the 13th District. I'm a resident of Huron. I'm a 25-year public servant, firefighter, paramedic. I graduated St. Thomas Medical Center of Akron, worked in Medina County Hazardous Materials team, worked for the SWAT team as a SWAT medic. I own numerous businesses. I'm a general contractor, and what I do is I invest into small business, grow the business so that way they can grow for employees and grow in wages with larger contracts. My father put me through medical school. He's a UAW worker, 1035. I'm also the vice president of the Ohio Oath Keepers, which is a community response team. We deal with youth, scouts, male and female. We teach them life skills. We also work within the sheriff's departments to give them assistance in times of natural disasters. 24 years married to my wife. I've got 5 adopted biracial kids, and I'm just glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. The first question, if elected to public office, what would your priorities be on behalf of the citizens you represent?
If I was elected to public office, the biggest thing is education and safety. We have a drug problem. We all know that there's a drug problem out there. And what we've got to do, we can address the problem, but the people that are affected by those drug problems, we've got to be able to give them an assistance, give them something to look up to, give them jobs, because without the jobs, they have no security. And once we're able to give them some security and give them a hand up, I think that we'll be able to turn that, that epidemic around, get them out with better education, better job opportunities, and then just the state of our state, working with the youth. I mean, the kids are our future, and that's what we have to really put our focus to. We want them to have better jobs, better education, trade school. We need more skilled labor. College gets you a lot of bills, but not a lot of jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. Mr. Manning, the same question. If elected to public office, what would your priorities be on behalf of the citizens you represent?
Thank you. My priorities are always listening to the district, listening to the county. You know, a lot of people ask me when I first got elected as state representative, what's your agenda, what are your priorities? And, you know, I think it's really just listening to the experts in any given field, particularly the experts in Lorain County. Some of the bills I'm most proud of came directly from Lorain County. I worked with the Howdy Shells on a pharmacy doctor consult bill and for people to get emergency medications when they need it. They unfortunately lost their son. They're from Avon Lake, and they're doing great work across the country, getting bills just like the one we passed in Ohio. Another one came from Klingshirn Winery from Avon Lake, if anybody's familiar with it. All they wanted to do was sell wine at a local farmer's market and couldn't do it under state law. And let me tell you, anytime you get into liquor laws, it gets a little complicated. You know, so my priority is always listening to what the needs of the district are. Certainly the opiate epidemic, jobs in the economy, and education are always a priority as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Ms. Suida, same question. If elected to public office, what would your priorities be on behalf of the citizens you represent?
Yes, I agree that you do need to listen to the district and to hear the concerns of the citizens. But I think that we have glaring problems right now that we have heard if we've been listening. We need jobs. We need a lack in a disparity of wage for the different communities who are seeking work. The opioid crisis, we are putting a lot of effort into treatment of the opioid addiction problem, but I think we need to start exploring the option of preemptive measures that will serve down the road to start reducing and limiting the addiction and the numbers and statistics so that we aren't so compelled to work on the rehabilitation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sueda. For your second question, what do you feel are the two biggest challenges facing Ohio in the next 4 years?
Over the course of the next 4 years, I think we're going to see even greater need for investment and job creation within our district and within the state. We need to explore alternative sources of education. We need to make sure that every child is getting an adequate education. We need to make education affordable for those who seek it. We need to regain the control of the educational process to our cities where it has been lost. And then we also need to make sure that we're creating a healthier environment, not just treating the opioid crisis, but also making certain that our citizens have access to affordable health care. Thank you.
And Mr. Manning, same question. What do you feel are the two biggest challenges facing Ohio in the next 4 years?
Yeah, the two biggest issues, you can never predict the future, but I'm guessing the two biggest issues are what the two biggest issues are now, and that's jobs, the economy, and the opiate epidemic. We've done a great improvement over the last 6+ years, 500,000 new private sector jobs. The unemployment rate in Lorain County itself went from over 10% to 5%, but we need to do more in terms of high-paying jobs, better wage jobs, working with LCC and JVS. I've had 2 bills out there that are workforce development bills that are getting people in these in-demand jobs that are high-paying, that don't need a expensive 4-year degree. In the opiate epidemic, we had a budget shortfall this last budget, over $1 billion, but we still were able to put $180 million of new money into the opiate epidemic. During the capital budget process, we were able to bring back over $1 million for the opiate epidemic to Lorain County specifically. We need more inpatient, we need more detox centers. Jails and ERs are not detox centers. So we need to do more in that regard. And I think we're heading in the right direction, but there's always more work to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Sawyer, same question. What do you feel are the two biggest challenges facing Ohio in the next 4 years?
I'll agree with Nathan. Job growth in the opiate epidemic. With the job growth, if people don't have a job, the biggest thing that they've got is you get into depression, you get into domestic violence, you get into problems within the family. That's where child abuse, everything stems from. So I mean, creating good jobs is a great thing to to help lift that up and solve some of those problems. And then also, you're always looking for something else if you don't have a good job or the money. So a lot of people resort to either alcohol or whether it's drugs, to try to bury that issue. But I mean, that's one of the biggest things is jobs. We really need the jobs. We need good jobs, and we need good skilled labor jobs. And once again, we don't need those college degrees for our carpenters, and landscapers, and everybody out there that's doing a skilled labor. I mean, landscaping is not just mowing grass. I mean, we're laying out complete facilities for huge corporations. So yeah, those are the two. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sawyer. Your third question would be, if elected to the state Senate, what attributes or skills would you bring to your elected position?
My skills, job growth. That's what I do. I start companies or I invest into other smaller companies and I grow them. 25 years in public service, working with law enforcement, fire, EMS. I've been on the streets. I'm on the streets now. I'm not just the business owner. I'm the business worker. I'm the guy out night, all night long doing snow removal and ice management for corporations so that their retail customers can be in there the next morning. That's what I bring. I bring life skills. I'm a general contractor. We build things. We hire lots of people, to help us in skilled trades and in laborers. We give them the education that they need to be successful in life, and give them, the monetary value that they're able to have the things and be able to take care of the family, and be able to buy the homes and things that, other people would like to afford. And the biggest thing is to take care of their children. No child should ever go to bed hungry at night. So as long as we have the jobs, those jobs solve a lot of our problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manning, I'll ask you the same question. If elected to the state senate, what attributes or skills would you bring to your elected position?
Thank you. So I have an uncanny skill of being able to see both sides of the issue, which sometimes I didn't wish I had that skill, but I think we need more people like that in Columbus and certainly in D.C. I think sometimes you can, when you listen to both sides of the issue, you listen to experts on any particular issue, you can come to some sort of compromise that all the important aspects can be, really worked out. And, that's what I've tried to do the last 3.5 years. I'm a small business owner. They teach you a lot in law school. They certainly don't teach you how to run a business. So any of my fellow lawyers out there that have thrown up a shingle, you learn a lot about how to run a business. And I think that's why I'm endorsed by the National Federation of Independent Business, the Voice for Small Business, the Chamber of Commerce, because I know what issues are important to the business community that create these jobs. As a former prosecutor and defense attorney, I'm currently the chair of Criminal Justice Committee. I bring my expertise down to Columbus, and people rely on me for the field that I come from. And lastly, being a state rep and transitioning over to the state senate, I think I can hit the ground running. I'll be able to get things done in the Senate and get things done for Lorain and Huron County. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Suida, I'll ask you the same question. If elected to the state senate, what attributes or skills would you bring to your elected position?
Thank you. The skills and attributes that I would bring are the life skills that I've acquired in my course of running a business, of balancing budgets, of managing staff, of hiring and training people for the proper positions. But more than that, my life's work, as I stated before, has been done at kitchen tables, where I have learned to listen to people. I understand the concerns. I understand what keeps them up at night. I know what it will require. I know that we need to have financial resources returned to our communities. We need to have less financial burden on our families. We need to have jobs for our families. They need to know their children are safe when they go to school. We need to have responsible gun laws. We need to have less worry over whether DACA or Dreamers are going to be a subject of a deportation. And I bring all of that compassion with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Suida, this question is, why are you seeking this office at this time in your life?
Well, I've been asked that question a lot, and I'm seeking this position now because I see all the work that needs to be done. I've heard the people that are suffering. I've heard from the district, and I see the decline in the economic and the stable community that once was a vibrant and growing place to live and raise your family. We have lost jobs. We see every day there is a new issue that comes out of Columbus that's going to go after organized labor, that wants to attack the principles and concepts that protect the lifestyle of the people in our district. And I feel that it's time that I step to the plate and I represent our district in making sure that we secure our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manning, the same question. Why are you seeking this office at this time in your life?
I ask myself that question every day probably, but you know, I look back at when I first ran for state representative, why did I run? And you know, when my dad first ran, and we lost him back in 2004, but when he first ran for office, I was a senior in high school, entering college, and I really saw, you know, the passion he had and the difference that he made in everybody's life. And while I view myself as more of a shy person, maybe not somebody that would be a typical politician, I think we need different types of people in Columbus and a voice for Lorain County and Huron County. You know, I think I've made a big difference in carrying bills that are important to the district. I think I've made a big difference in criminal justice reform, in the opiate epidemic, and I hope to be able to continue that work in the state Senate. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sawyer, the same question. Why are you seeking this office at this time in your life?
This time in my life, as a business owner and a business developer, I've got 5 children. My children are small and they're upcoming. We've got neighbors, I've got elderly parents that are losing their benefits. My dad worked hard all his life, 40 years, for General Motors, worked in the auto industry, and each time that something comes out, they're losing that benefit. They lose a medical benefit, more of their retirement is going away. I'm running because I want to protect our kids. Our kids are our future. We have to take care of the kids. And like I said, you know, our aging parents, but I want to run because I want to make a difference. There's a lot of common sense laws that we can do, that we can put forward that would help everyone. A lot of conservative issues that would be able to help everyone. I also want to be able to protect the unborn. You know, it's always the ones that bring up, you know, when it comes to the pro-life agenda, it's always the ones that are against it are the ones that are already born. They need a voice also, and like I said, it's about our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. Now you will each have 1 minute for a closing remark. Mr. Sawyer.
Closing remark is, once again, I'm running for the 13th district, for the, you know, for our children, for our families, for the people. I'm out in the community, like 25 years in the department. I responded to your 911 calls. I was there during the night when you were having the heart attack. I was there on the suicide calls. We've got some problems. We've got a lot of problems to take care of, to get people through some rough times. And if there's nobody there on their behalf to speak for them, they've got to have that phone number and that phone call to somebody that's going to answer that phone and return that and give them an answer that they need to hear. Somebody that's going to be able to help them get the support that they need, and somebody that's just going to, you know, and be their voice for them in Columbus. I appreciate your vote, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. Mr. Manning?
Well, thank you for having me. Thanks for the tough questions. I know we had some great discussion here, but with the limited time frame, you know, we can't answer all the questions. So I encourage anyone out there that, you know, they see us at an event or see us knocking doors or anything along those lines, come up to us, ask us questions. You know, we care what's important to you, what issues are most important to the community. You know, I've been able, in the 3.5 years I've been down in Columbus, I've been able to get a lot of bills passed through. Most of them came from the district. I've been on bipartisan bills. I just had a House Bill 1 signed into law as a bipartisan bill with Representative Sykes from the Akron area, and it's in regards to protecting victims of dating violence. You know, to allow them to get a protection order. You know, House Bill 70 has been in the news in Lorain County a lot lately. You know, I voted against my party. I voted no on House Bill 70 because it wasn't good for Lorain County. It wasn't good for the district. You know, I'm willing to stand up for what's right for the district. You know, redistricting, you know, is a huge issue right now, and this is my little plug for issue 1. We worked on that. It was a bipartisan effort. We were able to come together with all the different interested parties and get a compromise out there. So please support issue 1, redistricting. I think it's going to be great for the whole state of Ohio, but particularly Lorain County. And with that, thank you once again for having me.
Thank you. Ms. Suida?
Well, I want to thank the coalition, and I'd like to thank the panel for tonight. This is a nice opportunity for all of us to be seen together, as well as to all the members of the audience who took the time and the energy to come and find out what each of the candidates in each of the races are going to be standing for. I appreciate any support I can get from all of our community. My goal is to set out and to do the work that is needed and necessary to advance District 13 to bring Lorain and Huron counties back to the vibrant communities that we once had, to restore the prosperity that we once enjoyed, as well as to prepare a future for our children and to be able to secure the lives of those that are most important to us. And I thank you again.
Thank you for coming out and answering the questions and giving up some of your time to do that. We're going to take a short break now before we move on to the next segment.
We make Marines who overpower the desire to quit with the perseverance to prevail. Not for glory, but for honor. For a code that isn't written or spoken, but lived. It's what we do. It's who we are. It's the battle cry of our fighting spirit. Battles won. See all the battles Marines fight to win at marines.com.
Welcome to the Judge Court Common Pleas of the Domestic Division. We're going to start off with our 1-minute opening remarks. Judge Lisa Swensky.
Would you like me to stand up or here?
Right there, please.
All right, very good. I am Judge Lisa Swensky. I am the Lorain County Domestic Relations and Juvenile Court Judge. I was elected 5 years ago. In that 5 years, I've heard thousands of domestic cases and juvenile cases. This is a domestic relations court. So of the 5 days a week, we spend 4 days doing domestic relations, 1 day doing juvenile delinquency. Domestic relations is dissolution, divorce, contested, spousal support, child support, etc. Juvenile delinquency is 1 day. So I've been the judge for 5 years. Prior to that, I was a magistrate in Lorain County Family Court, where I did domestic and juvenile, and I was a Lorain County Detention Home Magistrate for the juvenile delinquency section of the court. Before that, I was a domestic relations practitioner. I worked in the area of domestic relations, and I represented children and families in Lorain County. Stop.
Thank you. Mr. Jack Bradley, you're up next.
Why run for judge? I'm Jack Bradley, and I've been practicing law for 40 years. I've employed numerous staff members, provided them with salaries, health insurance benefits, pension plans, but that's not what I'm most proud of. What I'm most proud of is the things that I've done besides practicing law. I taught school for 5 years, taught 4th grade at Emerson Elementary School in Lorain. Had a great experience teaching young people. I also worked youth retreats at the Fathers of St. Joseph for almost 20 years. And during those youth retreats, I would work with young people from the ages of 15 to 20. We deal with their issues, their problems, and hopefully help them be better individuals. So it's my hope that as the Domestic Relations Court judge, I can continue to work with young people, help them to avoid getting into the adult system, and to be better human beings. My motto is strength in families, strength in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Charlita Anderson-White.
Good evening and thank you. I am Charlita Anderson-White, and I am a Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court Magistrate for the Lorain County Domestic Relations Court. I have served in that capacity for 19 years. I do exactly the job that a judge does. I've served generations of families. I've taught college. I have an MBA where certainly that benefits the court because we are one of the largest employers in Lorain County. My goal as a magistrate is to transition into judge so that I can have a better role and to make that a better court and have a better administrative role in the court. That is my goal, to impact children and continue to impact families in Lorain County, and that is what I have done over the 19 years that I have served under Judge Boros and now under Judge Sherry Glass. So I would humbly ask for your vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Michael Duff.
I'm Mike Duff. I'm running for judge because I think judges should not be involved in raising funds. They should spend their own money to get elected, which I'm doing. I have made it a big part of my race that I'm not taking a dime from anyone, not one red cent. I'm paying this through all my own funds, and I think everybody on this panel is financially able to do so, and they shouldn't be out there seeking funds because I believe that corrupts the justice system. If the judges are getting money from lawyers, especially lawyers, to appear in their court, then that affects, it looks like bribery to me. It just doesn't look right for judges to take money from lawyers who are going to appear in front of them. And that bothers me, and that's why I'm running on this basis, that I think we need a justice system that doesn't accept money from lawyers who appear in front of judges. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to give you the first question. If elected, what attributes or skills do you bring to your elected position? Please provide an example of how you would utilize these attributes or skills to meet the needs of the citizens of Lorain County. Mr. Duff.
My skills are that I've been practicing for 38 years, and I've done a lot of juvenile cases back in the early 80s and throughout the early 80s, and domestic cases. I moved on to a lot of criminal defense, high-profile criminal defense cases. I've won numerous major cases, and I believe I'm the only one on this panel that can handle the stress of the job that I've dealt with in major cases. And the juvenile court and the domestic court, it's not that complex. You divide matters in half for spouses, give each other half. You divide the pensions. You try to do a fair analysis of the case, and also you look at the matter of custody of children. You do a fair division of the parental rights and responsibilities. I've done those throughout my career early on, and I think that's the reason I'd be the best candidate to win this job, because I'd be fair. I'd not be affected by someone who gave me money in my campaign.
Thank you. Mrs. White? If elected, what attributes or skills do you bring to your elected position? Please provide an example of how you would utilize these attributes or skills to meet the needs of the citizens of Lorain County.
Well, first of all, as a 19-year magistrate, I would hit the ground running. There's no learning curve. I would do exactly what I was trained to do over the 19 years that I've been doing it. I have the most experience and the best qualifications, with all due respect, of any of my fellow panelists. I intend to use my MBA to look at budgeting, and our mission for the court is to collaborate with the community. I expect that I will use my education, my MBA, my law degree, and my experience to serve the families to prevent juveniles from entering into the adult system. I've dealt with generations of families, and it's time to stop that cycle. And so for 19 years, I've watched families grow, separate, come back together, and I think that with my experience, I am the best qualified candidate.
Thank you. Mr. Bradley, the same question. If elected, what attributes or skills do you bring to your elected position? Please provide an example of how you would utilize these attributes or skills to meet the needs of the citizens of Lorain County.
As I indicated in my opening statement, I've been working with young people a large part of my life, working with fourth graders as a teacher, also working with 15 to 20-year-olds at youth retreats at the Fathers of St. Joseph. One of my plans is to not just sit at the courthouse all day and wait for people to come to me. My plan is to visit the schools in Lorain County and take with me resource people to talk to young people. We have 5th and 6th graders that have problems. We have drug problems that have not been getting better in this community, they've been getting worse. So a new approach has to be taken. I'd like to take people that are in treatment, that have gone through the horrors of starting drug use, trying to deal with their drug addiction, the pain it's caused them, the pain it's caused their family, and give this to young people so that they understand once you start taking drugs, it's a downward spiral. And by going into the schools, I think we can help these young people to maybe avoid the problem, hopefully, and not have this problem continue in our community.
Thank you. Judge Swensky, if elected, what attributes or skills do you bring to your elected position? Please provide an example of how you would utilize these attributes or skills to meet the needs of the citizens of Lorain County.
The citizens of Lorain County expect certain things from their judges. They expect their judge to honor their time. They expect their judge to respect them. They expect their judge to do what's right by their children. And all of that requires patience, the ability to educate people about what the system is about, what it can do for you and what it cannot do for you, compassion, humor. Those are the things that people want from a judge. When they go before the judge, they want to know that that judge is listening to them. They want their day in court. And in my courtroom, they get it. They know that they've been heard. They know that I'll make the best decision I can, no matter how hard it is. And they are hard decisions. That's what the average person wants, and that's what they get from my court.
Thank you. For the next question, Judge Zawinski, in the Court of Common Pleas, there have been instances in which the Hispanic Latino defendant requests an interpreter because although he or she may speak everyday English, he or she does not understand the legal terminology being utilized in the court. Do you believe that this is a legitimate reason for the court to assign an interpreter? Why or why not?
It depends on their language proficiency. I had just that particular incident in my court, or an instance of that, where the young man spoke English very well, but he did not feel comfortable with the legal terminology. Well, I can assure everybody here that 90% of the people who come to court do not feel comfortable with the legal terminology. That's why they have lawyers, to try to explain to them what something means. What does it mean to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt? What does it mean to be delinquent? What does it mean to be unfit? Those are legal terms that a lawyer has to help a client with, regardless of what their first language is. So I do it on a case-by-case basis, and that's the best way that we can do it. We can't have a policy just set out for it, because then everybody would say, I need somebody to help interpret. I hope that makes sense to you. But in my court, we accommodate the best we can with interpreters. And because I used to go to CHIP's leadership conference, I was well ahead of the curve on interpreters and on what was required by the Constitution. So I do take it seriously.
Thank you. Mr. Bradley, the same question. In the Court of Common Pleas, there have been instances in which the Hispanic Latino defendant requests an interpreter because although he or she may speak everyday English, he or she does not understand the legal terminology being utilized in the court. Do you believe that this is a legitimate reason for the court to assign an interpreter? Why or why not?
Again, if I'm going to make a mistake as a judge, I'm going to make a mistake in favor of the citizen who's appearing before me. I had a case recently where I had an individual who spoke Spanish, he understood some English, and he was stopped for operating a vehicle under the influence. And I felt very bad for him because I do not believe that he understood everything that the officer was saying to him during these field sobriety tests, asking him questions about why he was driving, had he been drinking, where he was coming from. And I asked the officer, I said, did you make any effort to bring in a Spanish-speaking police officer to help this individual? And he said no. When my client came to court, they made sure that they had an interpreter there for him so that he understood everything that was going on. I think that every citizen is entitled to understand everything that's going on, from the time of their arrest until the time their case is disposed of, and we'll make sure that there are interpreters always available, either in person or over the telephone, to help those citizens when they're in court.
Thank you. Same question, Ms. Anderson-White. In the Court of Common Pleas, there have been instances in which the Hispanic Latino defendant requests an interpreter because although he or she may speak everyday English, he or she does not understand the legal terminology being utilized in the court. Do you believe that this is a legitimate reason for the court to assign an interpreter? Why or why not?
Absolutely. There's no test to determine someone's proficiency. Any lawyers out here in the crowd understand that when we went to law school, we studied Latin, and we were fluent in English. And just by example, it is very difficult to understand words that you're not familiar with. So when you come into court, especially in a domestic relations situation or a juvenile situation, particularly in a quasi-criminal situation, you definitely don't want to set the court up for an appeal. We've had Chinese interpreters, we've had interpreters who speak other languages, just a plethora of languages. And I think it's important for us to recognize, and when we talk about cultural sensitivity, we definitely need to respect that the court is there to make sure that everyone has justice. That is what we do in our court system, is provide justice. And you do not have justice if you cannot understand what's happening. So yes, I think it is absolutely imperative to have an interpreter and to err on the side of caution.
Thank you. Mr. Duff, the same question. In the Court of Common Pleas, there have been instances in which the Hispanic Latino defendant requests an interpreter because although he or she may speak everyday English, he or she does not understand the legal terminology being utilized in the court. Do you believe that this is a legitimate reason for the court to assign an interpreter? Why or why not?
Yes, it is a legitimate reason. In the 38 years of practicing law on Broadway in Lorain, Ohio, I have many Latino and Hispanic clients. And if I have trouble communicating with them, I bring in an interpreter to discuss the matter with them. And they interpret for me, and we explain all their rights to them, and they understand everything they're doing. Nothing happens in my office unless the client understands totally all his rights and all his obligations and all the consequences of working the case out. And that's done also at the Court of Common Pleas. They enforce that right religiously. Judge is there, make sure an interpreter is present before anything is done on a case that's going to affect a defendant's rights. And I believe the court adheres to that, and I adhere to that in my office too.
Thank you, Mr. Duff. For your third question, Webster defines diversity as the inclusion of different types of people, such as different types of races or cultures. What do you consider appropriate diversity within the court staff of approximately 126 people? Mr. Duff.
All right, I saw that question, and I think this is a very diverse county, and I think the court staff should reflect the diversity of this county. So I believe that for Hispanic and Latino, I believe that's about 33% of this county. I'm not sure of that, but I believe that. If that's the case, this court staff should reflect that. But many of those staffs up there, I know Judge Swinski does have a bailiff who's black. All right, I understand that, but I think a lot of the other staffs are mostly white, and that does bother me. And I think something should be done so that the staffs of the judges reflect the diversity of this county in the same percentages. And I intend to do that when I am elected, that my staff will reflect the diversity of this county.
Thank you. Mrs. Anderson-White, same question. Webster defines diversity as the inclusion of different types of people, such as different types of races or cultures. What do you consider appropriate diversity within the court staff of approximately 126 people?
Well, if you recall, a couple years ago during the judicial debates, the question of diversity was asked, and the answer was me. Charlita Anderson White. She's qualified, she's African American, she'll represent the community. That's a very lonely place to be. And yes, when you come into a building where the people don't look like you don't understand why, and you don't know whether or not you're going to receive the appropriate cultural sensitivity. And this is where we do justice. When you walk into the Justice Center, you should see people that look like you. I wouldn't talk about percentages. I think we need to hire the most qualified people, and we need to make sure that we respect the diversity of this community. Being the only African American magistrate, like I said, is a very lonely place to be. We just recently hired another one, but now there's two, and one African American prosecutor. I think we need to do better. We owe our community that.
Thank you. Mr. Bradley, same question. Webster defines diversity as the inclusion of different types of people, such as different types of races or cultures. What do you consider appropriate diversity within the court staff of approximately 126 people?
Again, I've been practicing law for 40 years, and I've tried to always maintain diversity in my office. I've had people that I always felt were qualified, but I also felt that I tried to reflect the diversity in my staff so that it reflected the diversity in our community. I know that it's been beneficial to my office when I've hired lawyers or staff members from different races or ethnicities, and so I think that after 40 years of doing that, I would continue to do that as a judge in our community. We have a lot of talented people in our community, a lot of people that have a lot of things to offer in our community. And if you just restrict yourself to people of a certain race or a certain ethnicity, I think that you limit the creativity that you have in your office and the ability to make change in that office. And it would be my hope that I would continue that path as a judge in this county.
Thank you. And Judge Swinski, same question. Webster defines diversity as the inclusion of different types of people, such as different types of races or culture. What do you consider appropriate diversity within the court staff of approximately 126 people?
I will concur with my panelists that the percentages, that's not exactly where we want to go. I'm a big believer in diversity, and not just racial diversity, but all kinds of diversity. And I tried to bring that with me when I came to court. The best answer I can give you is the answer that a very good judge gave you 2 years ago. Michelle Arredondo, Judge Arredondo said, I would love to have a more diverse staff. I would love to do it. Where are the Hispanic lawyers? Where are the African American lawyers? Where are they, is what Michelle Arredondo said. I think we need to make a better effort to get people into the court to at least apply. And again, I'm a big believer in diversity. That's how we move forward. That's how we make progress. That's how we learn from each other. And I employ that with my own personal staff, and I've tried to do so as administrative judge.
Thank you. Judge Swinski, the Common Pleas Court Domestic Division has very few certified interpreters to support court classes, or cases, my mistake. Interviews, hearing, court-ordered mediations, home visits, psychological assessments, parent conferences, intakes, and other activities taking place on a daily basis. Knowing that this can lead to violations of the 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendments of the Constitution, would you take any steps to rectify the situation?
We had one certified interpreter, and we have taken all the steps that we can possibly take. We are in constant contact with Bruno Romero down in Columbus. We had an interpreter, she left. We looked at the numbers as to whether or not we could support another full-time interpreter, and the court administrator, determined that we could not. So we have the interpreters come in. When we have them, we try to block schedule any cases that require interpreters. They come in sometimes from Geneva, sometimes from Columbus, And that is a heavy cost to the county. So the last interpreter bill that I did for Judge Walther was $600 for a half-hour hearing because it included travel time. So when we talk so casually about having an interpreter for every legal term, you have to keep in mind that it's legal terminology that people wanted interpreted versus what is actually going on in the courtroom. We have interpreters for what is going on in the courtroom. And I think we need more for the ancillary items that the public has to deal with, such as the purple sheets, which are right sheets, et cetera, and affidavits. So, sorry, I went over my time.
Thank you. Mr. Bradley, the Common Pleas Court Domestic Division has very few certified interpreters to support court cases, interviews, hearings, court-ordered mediations, home visits, psychological assessments, parent conferences, intakes, and other activities taking place on a daily basis. Knowing that this can lead to the violations of the 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution, would you take any steps to rectify this situation?
I try to learn from other judges in the community, and by observing what they do, I think that it would help me in being a better judge. And Judge Januzzi in Oberlin has decided that it's more cost efficient to use an interpreter over the telephone. And so anytime he needs an interpreter, he can get on the telephone and secure the services of an interpreter at a reasonable cost and help the citizens that are having language problems. And it's not just Hispanics. We have people with other language barriers that need assistance, and they need assistance now. And we all have cell phones now, so all we need to do is get on our cell phone and call that number, and we can get an interpreter on the phone. It can be done by the police, it can be done by prosecutors, it can be done by probation officers, it can be done by anyone within the chain of the legal community to help people understand what's going on in the street, in the courtroom, and in other situations. So that's what I would try to institute in our domestic relations juvenile court.
Thank you. Mrs. White, the Common Pleas Court Domestic Division has very few certified interpreters to support court cases, interviews, hearings, court-ordered mediations, home visits, psychological assessments, parent conferences, intakes, and other activities taking place on a daily basis. Knowing that this can lead to violations of the 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendments of the Constitution, would you take any steps to rectify this situation?
Yes, we do have the landline, which Mr. Bradley discussed, and we do utilize a part-time interpreter. But one of the court's missions is to collaborate with the community. This is a very large community of Spanish-speaking people, almost per capita the size of the Spanish-speaking community in Manhattan. And so I think that it is kind of a cop-out to say that we can't find the money. We collaborate, and that's the important part of being part of the court system and being a judge, is making sure you look outside of the community without accessing taxpayer dollars to find the funds and find the collaboration and make sure that we get the interpreters that we need. We can do that. And we don't have to make the excuse that we can't find the money. We can use grant resources and money from the state to make sure that we don't violate citizens' rights. We do justice in that building.
Thank you. Mr. Duff, the Common Pleas Court Domestic Division has very few certified interpreters to support court cases, interviews, hearings, court-ordered mediations, home visits, psychological assessments, parent conferences, intakes, and other activities taking place on a daily basis. Knowing that this can lead to the violations of the 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendments of the Constitution, would you take any steps to rectify this situation?
Yes, I would pay them the money to be present, physically present. Doing it over phone is not effective. When you're talking to a client about a decision that's going to affect their life, they have a right, I believe, to have an interpreter physically present to explain all their rights to them. And we shouldn't treat this as a conversation over the phone. There should be a face-to-face meeting with the interpreter, because these clients of mine, they always come up with questions. What about this, Mr. Duff? What about that? And if the interpreter's over the phone, it's not the same understanding for the client. And that's the most important thing, is to respect the rights of that client so that they know they've been treated fairly. We pay all kinds of court-appointed lawyers fees to travel and go all around and represent these people and go out to the county jail and sit with them, but we've got to look at also making sure interpreters are provided to these clients. To these interpreters, make sure their costs are paid by the county. If they can pay for all these court-appointed lawyers, they're making a lot of money off the county, they can afford to pay for interpreters. It's just as important as a court-appointed lawyer.
Thank you. Now you'll have a closing remark. Mr. Duff, can you start?
Well, I got in this campaign because I wanted to make a statement that judges should not take money from lawyers during campaigns. I'm not taking a red cent from anybody. I'm paying for this campaign myself, and I'm sure Attorney Bradley and I can afford to do that, all right? But he's had 4 fundraisers so far. I've had none, and I won't have one. I won't take a dime from anybody, not 1 red cent. That corrupts the justice system. It really does. Money to judges from lawyers who appear in front of them just smacks of impropriety to me. Judge Swinsky's had fundraisers, 3 or 4, I don't know. But you know, when your family goes in front of a judge, wouldn't you want to know what lawyer gave the most money to that judge? That might be the one you want to hire, right? It's not right. So I think that should be changed in the system because it's wrong and it creates an appearance of impropriety that you're buying your justice or you're buying your divorce case or buying your custody case when your lawyer is the big contributor.
Thank you. Mrs. Anderson-White.
Thank you. I want to thank the panel, and I want to thank Chip for inviting me. Look, I want to earn your vote every day. I want your vote. I need this job, and it needs me. I've been doing this for 19 years. I can hold this seat for as long as the taxpayers allow me to hold it. I won't term out after a year. I plan to serve this community like I have been serving it for the last 25 years. I started out as a legal aid attorney, I served as an assistant prosecutor, and now as a magistrate for the last 19 years. I am firmly embedded in the community because the community deserves a judge who can relate to the community that she serves. I will hit the ground running. I would appreciate your vote. There's no learning curve for me. I've been doing this job for 19 years, and I've been doing it well, and I've been doing it to the full extent. All kind of hearings, trials, pre-trials, and every facet of the juvenile court system. So thank you so much for your support, and I ask for your vote in May.
Thank you. Mr. Bradley?
Thank you. First of all, I think that we start off with the wrong premise if we think that judges in Lorain County can be bought off. I don't think anybody on this panel can name one judge who's ever been bought off. I know in the last 40 years that I've been practicing, I don't know of any judge in this county that's ever been bought off. So if you start off with a false premise, then your whole conclusion is false. But in any event, I'm kind of proud of some of the things that I've done, not as a lawyer, but to help others in the legal community. I've been asked by the Supreme Court of Ohio to mentor first-year lawyers, and I've been doing it for 10 years. And some of those lawyers that I've mentored have become prosecutors, have become magistrates, and have become fine attorneys. I was asked by the Lorain County Bar Association to take a group of lawyers and appear in front of the United States Supreme Court. And I appeared in front of the United States Supreme Court, and I asked the Supreme Court to accept those lawyers to practice in front of the United States Supreme Court, and they were accepted and they were proud. I plan on making the citizens of Lorain County proud if they vote for me, and I won't let you down.
Thank you. Judge Swensky?
Thank you very much. I would also ask for your vote on May 8th. I am the sitting judge. This is not an open seat. I have held this job for 5 years now. Prior to that, I almost routinely attended CHIP's annual leadership conference over at the Spitzer Center. I routinely went to those workshops and learned about the language bank, learned about interpreting, learned about the constitutional amendments and the superintendent's rules, and I have applied everything that I could as a judge. I am simply the most progressive court in that building. And if you wish to have a progressive judge, a judge who takes due process seriously, who takes fairness seriously, and who knows domestic relations, I'm the judge. I'm the one for you. And contrary to what you've heard here tonight, a magistrate does not do everything that a judge does. A magistrate does not do permanent custody or capital punishment or judicial bypasses. I'm the only one with that experience. And I ask for your vote on May 8th.
Thank you.
Stop. Whether it's on the way to school, at school, or online, bullying has become a non-stop threat to our youth today. Is your child being bullied? The National Runaway Switchboard can help. If you're having a hard time, get online or call to chat now.
Veterans benefits earned through your service in the National Guard or Reserve can offer a range of support.
I wouldn't be here today as a successful woman without the help that I received.
From home loans to job training, go to benefits.va.gov/Guard Reserve to find out more, even how to apply online using e-benefits.
This is one of the best things I ever did in my life. We were very fortunate to have these benefits, so we definitely ought to use them.
Achieve your next mission. Learn about your VA benefits today.
Okay, now we'll be entering into our last race with the House of 56th District. You'll each have 1 minute of opening remarks, and we will start with Joe Miller.
Thank you. Thank you, CHIP leadership, my fellow candidate, Mr. Shaver, and our audience. And this late at night, I definitely have to speak out to my wife and my boys who are past their bedtime. And I have, of course, my oldest who has, I know this is surprising, a state-mandated test again. During my career as a teacher, union member, Democrat, councilman, I've spoken out against those who have used power to prevent my students, my fellow union members, neighbors, and Democrats from receiving a fair shot and an equal opportunity to access the fruits of these public institutions. But my experience has taught me it's not the institutions of public education, unions, the political parties, or even the government that prevents fairness, but the immoral and unethical people who hold power and will use it to prevent others from having access to it. During my tenure in each of these positions, I have fought for what I feel is right and for those I care about. I care about you, the residents of our district, those from the cities of Lorain, Vermilion, Sheffield Lake, Amherst, Oberlin, the villages, and the townships that make up our diverse community. I have the qualifications, the experience, and the track record to serve you well. You can trust me to advocate for you, and you can be your voice, because you matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Shaver, your 1 minute.
Good evening, and thank you for being here. I'm Corey Shaver, and I'm running for state representative. As the brother of a police officer and the grandson of a Boilermakers Union president, I was taught that public service is our responsibility. I'm running for state representative because I believe that Lorain County's best days are ahead of us. But for far too long, Columbus has ignored our communities. As your state representative, I will work to bring our local government fund dollars back to ensure that our safety forces are properly equipped. I will work to bring jobs to the district by ensuring that every child gets a quality education, by ensuring that every adult is trained for the high-paying jobs of tomorrow, and by ensuring that every person has the right to collectively bargain. I will work to combat the opioid epidemic and to ensure that Lake Erie, our greatest natural resource, is kept clean and can be used as an economic engine for our district. I believe we need change, and I want to be an agent of that change. It's time for a new generation of leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, starting with your first question, Mr. Shaver, if elected to the State House of Representatives, what attributes or skills would you bring to your elected position?
Well, first, I would say my policy experience. I've had the opportunity to work on policy at the county, the state, and the federal level. I serve on the National Sheriff's Association's Governmental Affairs Committee, and we affect policy at the federal level. Also, my relationships. I have worked to build relationships in all of those areas of government, and I believe that shows by the more than 24 endorsements I have from local elected officials, organizations, and the unanimous endorsement of the FOP.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, same question. If elected to the State House of Representatives, what attributes or skills would you bring to your elected position?
I think it's a very good question because that is something that we have to bring. We have to bring experience. We have to bring skills. We have to bring qualifications. And I believe I'm the best candidate for that job. I'm thinking that I'm the best candidate that has those skills. I think I'm the candidate that has those qualifications. Having served as a teacher for over 20 years, I understand how to listen to students. I understand how to listen to parents. I understand how to listen to the community. We try to find ways to solving problems, whether it be learning problems and other problems that students bring. I'm a councilman. I do it on a daily basis. I deal with legislation. I deal with legalese. I've chaired many of the committees. I've found ways to solve problems for my citizens in Amherst as a councilman at large. I'm going to expand that scope. I'm going to stop this toxic legislation that's attacking our schools, it's attacking our communities, it's attacking our families. I have the experience. I've worked with legislation. I'm ready to go. I'm going to hit the ground running. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, please rank the following in order of your personal beliefs: country, God, party, and family, and explain your rankings.
Well, being a Catholic and a Notre Dame fan, I would say God, country, and Notre Dame first. But after that, I believe that you do. You do look at God, you look at country, and it's all about family. If we're to survive as a democracy, it is about family. Party is a method. Parties are created to get people who care about God, who care about their country, and who care about their family into a position of power so that they can make change, not to be pushed out of power, not to be stepped on, not to be taken advantage of like we have from Columbus for the last 10 years. We're looking at a time where these principles of God and country and family need to shine. I teach this, I preach this, I push this, I fight for this, and I'm going to fight for you on these areas as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shaver? The same question. Please rank the following in order of your personal beliefs: country, God, party, and family, and please explain your rankings.
See, I'm going to have to go with God, family, and Ohio State. But I would say, as a fellow Catholic, my relationship with God gives me direction. My relationship with my family gives me support and belonging. My country gives me pride. And my relationship with my party gives me a sense of community with shared beliefs.
Thank you.
Mr. Shaver, the third question: what are your ideas on what Ohio should do to combat the opioid epidemic that is currently ravaging our state?
Well, look, it has to be a two-sided method of both prevention and treatment. We have to go into our schools and teach our kids at a young age that these drugs are bad for them, that they will hurt them. But also, once they are addicted, we have to treat them as patients and not as prisoners. We cannot jail our way out of this problem. We need to take care of it, and I applaud the commissioners for doing what they're doing with the treatment center. We have to treat them as patients.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, same question. What are your ideas on what Ohio should do to combat the opioid epidemic that is currently ravaging our state?
Thank you. We see this every day. I think we see it in our families. I know we see it in our schools. Our schools are ravaged, our families are ravaged by the opioid epidemic. When I started looking at this a little bit more in depth, it started with 11 deaths per day in Ohio. That is an epidemic. It's moved to 12, and the last stat, I can't confirm, is around 14. One is too many. One of our children is too many. We need education, and I agree with Mr. Shawver that we cannot incarcerate our way out of this. We need to educate. We need to create healthcare systems that's going to provide opportunities for people who are looking for treatment to get that treatment. They're in need. Nobody chooses addiction. Nobody chooses that way of life. Nobody chooses to overdose and to be brought back. We need to step up and bring policies from the state that work with our counties, our healthcare, and find ways to meet these needs of these children. And we have to do it now. Thank you.
Thank you. And for your final question, Mr. Miller, what do you think will be the impact of the current national effort by students to change gun laws on the state of Ohio?
Thank you for the opportunity to answer some of these questions. There's so many more I would love to talk to you about. But this is probably one of the most enjoyable things as a teacher, is to watch students get excited about using government, a democratic system, to reach out and make effective change, and they're doing it, and we should listen. This is an issue that has to be handled. No officer wants somebody with a gun pointing it at them. No community member wants it. And for goodness sake, no teacher and students want to see these type of issues hit the classroom. There's bigger picture, and that is educating our students safely and securely. So I think that one of the things that I would recommend that we do is we look at empowering these students, continuing to give them a voice, and understand that if we want democracy to flourish, that we promote this and we give them a voice at the table. That's going to only further develop our democratic system and, I think, secure it for our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shawver, same question. What do you think will be the impact of the current national effort by students to change gun laws on the state of Ohio?
Well, let me say, as someone who got involved in the process at a very young age, I am thrilled to see these students standing up and making their voices heard. In terms of the state of Ohio, if I'm elected state representative, I would propose three things. First, we need to ban bump stocks. No citizen should have an automatic weapon. They are weapons of war. Second of all, we need to expand red flag protection so that our police and our mental health professionals can take the guns away from people who they feel are unsafe. And third, we need to expand background checks and close the gun show loopholes so that we ensure that only people who should have guns have access to them.
Thank you. And before we close out, you guys will both have 1 minute of closing remarks. We'll start with you, Mr. Shawver.
Thank you, Chip, for hosting this event. As I mentioned in my opening, my grandfather, he was the Boilermakers Union president. My grandfather is my hero. And in fact, I'm wearing his tie tonight. He's no longer with us, but when he came back from World War II, he came back to Lorain, home, and built his family and built his life. And he did so on three pillars: hard work, honesty, and perseverance. Now, my grandparents and my parents instilled those values in me. And when I go to Columbus, I will take those values with me. I will work hard every day with my constituents in mind. I will do so honestly and truthfully. And I will do so in a spirit of perseverance, knowing that our goals will not be accomplished overnight, or probably not in my term, but I will work hard every day to get us closer to that more perfect union. I will be proud to represent Lorain County in Columbus, and I humbly ask for your vote on May 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, your 1 minute.
Thank you. Once again, thanks for having us here. I think it's important that our residents have an opportunity to see who our candidates are, listen to them, not just for the state rep position, but all the positions here that make up our democratic system. There's a reason I'm willing to sacrifice a tenured job as a Firelands teacher, my council position serving in Amherst, to run for state representative, and that's you. It's plain and simply you. You have been under assault from Columbus, and it hasn't been by the Democratic representatives down there. Dan Ramos has fought for us for 8 years. He's went to bat for education. He's went to bat for unions. He's went to bat for families. And he's went to bat for people here in Lorain County, for all people, Lorain and all the cities surrounding it. I want to carry that legacy on. I've got the experience. I've got the tenure. I've got the track record. I've got the ability to go down there and hit the ground running. I plan on doing it. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to fight against the establishment to make it happen. One of the things that I think is important for people to know is that it's not the political people that are behind you, it's whether the people's behind you. I've been endorsed as well, not by a single individual people that I'm gonna call out, but by the AFL-CIO of Ohio, of Lorain County, the CWA, even Lorain Education Association believes that I'm gonna go down and fight and stop this that's happened here at Lorain. We're gonna fight for teachers. I'm gonna fight for the citizens here in this county. I'm gonna fight for this district, and I'm gonna fight for you because I listen, I care, and you matter. I'm gonna be there for you. Thank you, and I hope to have your vote on May 8th.
Thank you so much.
As we conclude tonight, I would like to thank Carmen Libes, Alicia Pardon, our moderator, and of course, our famous student over here, Carlos Diaz. Let's give him applause here for doing a Kent State, going on to Kent State University. Joe Bach, Lorain City School, for videotaping tonight. And it will be, you can see this on channel, what, Joe, channel, what is it? 20? Well? It's 1025 now. Oh, 1025 now, if you want to see it in the next few weeks. Or YouTube as well. And YouTube also. I also want to thank Mr. David Hardy, our CEO of Lorain City School, Robin Hopkins, the principal here at Lorain High School, and of course our operations staff. Our timekeeper, Pablo Senquis and Gual Torres. Our hospitality, we have Becky Rodriguez, Rosie Garcia, Maria Carrion, and Eileen Torres. Am I missing anyone? I hope not. Of course, our PACE students, where are you? They can stand up back there for helping us tonight. And don't forget to vote on May 8th. Your voice is your vote.
This has been a production of Lorain City Schools TV 20 WLCS.